Pittsburgh State University Library Services presents the 38th Annual University Authors Reception.
Hi, I'm Howard Smith, Provost and Vice President for Academic Affairs here at Pittsburgh State University. It's my pleasure today to welcome you to the 38th Annual Authors Reception. You know, this is a great day at Pittsburgh State. Research is so critical to university settings, and it's so critical to the advancement of new information. You know, research allows us to gain new knowledge and make learning more accessible to folks. It's important because we can look and dive deep into certain theories that we have. We can answer questions, we create questions. We develop products, we develop strategies. We come up with a means, hopefully, that advances society and makes us a better place to live. You know, our faculty has done an exceptional job in working with students and helping them also dive into research. To me, it's so refreshing and enjoyable to see faculty and students doing projects together, and faculty doing projects together, as well as with our stakeholders and our employers and some of the folks that hire our graduates. You know, research is a critical component to higher education. It helps us in so many ways, and in another particular way is I like data-driven decision making. So hopefully it provides more depth and creates more value in the data that we look at, so that we're not looking at vague data, but actual concrete pieces. So research is a critical component to what we do. Please enjoy your time today by walking around and looking at the artifacts and actually the products of our many researchers and the accomplishments that they have. You're going to see articles, you're going to see chapters in books, you're going to see books themselves, and some other artifacts on things that have been developed because of the research that's been done here at Pittsburgh State. Pittsburgh State is a great institution, not only in the classroom, but in the extension of the classroom. So today's the day to celebrate that. And I thank you for being on campus and sharing in this excitement with these authors and creators. So have a good day and enjoy the time and effort that these people have put in to extending the knowledge base that we get to enjoy.
Authors of articles published in 2021 from the College of Arts and Sciences, campus activities, and the College of Education. Author comments from Dr. Donald Baack.
I'm Donald Baack. I'm a university professor in the College of Business for about 6 more weeks. I'm retiring on December 31st. So right now I'm on phased retirement and just kind of winding down this aspect of my life. Okay, well, there are 2 books and they're both probably in 2 of the more rapidly changing parts of business. The first one is management communication. You say, well, how does communication change? Well, when I started writing it, the second edition, this is not the first edition, when I started to do a revision, it was at the height of COVID, and all of a sudden, everybody's working from home, nobody's shaking hands. Remember, we're all bumping elbows and stuff like that. And there was an incredible emphasis on virtual meetings. How do you present yourself in a Zoom conversation as opposed to an in-person conversation? I kept saying that we got to play both sides of that, because there's also this part that people were lonely and feeling isolated, and so I tried to put both sides of that out there. I mean, the basic conclusion is that there are going to be a lot more folks working from home. And so that part, I was just trying to talk about how the different ways they ask is that sort of affects different forms of management communication. And I kept saying, the COVID's going to end. People are going to start shaking hands again. People are going to start hugging again. They didn't really want to hear that, so we had a little bit of a back and forth, but I think it came out pretty well. So that was a very rapidly changing form of business. The other one is the integrated advertising, promotion, marketing, communication. That one is in the 9th edition. It's been out there a long time. So they were both ongoing projects. Marketing communication is also really changing because at the time that it was going to press, it was about a 50-50 split between what you would call traditional media and new media. And so television, radio, newspaper, newspaper insert, those kinds of venues are getting fewer and fewer and fewer dollars, and more and more of those are moving to social media. So how do you reach audiences with that? And there's also an incredible emphasis on customer engagement. And how do we get that in basically an electronic society? Just a simple thing like in the old days, you used to hand the clerk in the store a coupon. Now you scan it off your phone into a coupon. And how do you reach audiences when television is so fragmented? I mean, when I was a youthful person, I lived in Jefferson City, Missouri. We had 3 channels. So now you have all of these streaming services. So how do you reach with customers and how do you engage with customers? And so folks in that industry, and then you've got things you don't even think about, like if an ad fits really well on a regular size screen, a laptop size screen, it's not going to fit on a tablet and it's not going to fit on a phone. So you have to adjust. I had a person tell me that they have to adjust 17 different sizes of screens. That particular area is also tremendously evolving and evolving very quickly. So both books required substantial update. How I spent about 2 years of my life getting those caught up. We were in the 8th edition 4 years ago. My co-author and actually the lead author on the book is Kenneth D. Clow, who I met as a co-faculty member at Pitt State back in the 90s. Ken and I formed a bond of both friendship and writing partnership. Ken and I worked together on a bunch of journal articles, and eventually we evolved over into books. So Ken and I worked together for about 24, 25 years. We got to the 8th edition, and it was time to move on to the 9th. And January of that year, Ken contacted me and said, I just need you to know I have terminal cancer. And so for that reason, I don't want to spend my time working on the 9th edition. What do you want to do? Well, it was his baby, basically. And I said, Ken, whatever you want to do is what we're going to do. And he said, okay. So we were thinking that maybe there wouldn't be a 9th edition, which, okay, we had a nice run. It got to about March, and Ken called me. And he said, I'm sitting in my house looking out my window and doing nothing. I would much rather work on something. Do you want to do the 9th edition? Ken, if you want to work on the 9th edition, we absolutely will work on the 9th edition. And so we got started. That summer, he had what he thought was some pretty good news about the spread of the cancer. I went down and saw him. He lives in Monroe, Louisiana, and we went through getting everything all lined up, getting all the ducks in a row, all the updates, because we were talking about, and this is actually before the COVID, but we're still talking about how the industry's changing so much. Got a good game plan, started working on it, and we got all the chapters in pretty decent shape by November. And the next phase that happens in book publishing is copy editing. And I had started sending those in. That was pretty much my part of the gig. We kind of played off each other's strengths. We were up to 4th or 5th chapter, and I got contacted by Susan, his wife, and Ken passed away on Thanksgiving Day of that year. I went rushing off to Louisiana to the funeral. At the funeral, He has 4 sons and his wife Susan. And I said, I will see that this book gets published if I have to drive to New Jersey and print them myself. I'm going to finish this project. And they said, great, that's great to know. 2 months later, January, I get notified by Prentice Hall that they have stopped publication on all books, not just ours, because they were getting so clobbered by online books, and they were trying to figure out how to adapt to that, and they were going to trim their line of books by a lot. So I had a fairly salty conversation with them because we were up to chapter 9 of publishing at a copy editing out of 15 when that happened. And I thought, well, this really stinks. You know, it's going to die this close to being done. Got to June of that year, and they said, yours is one of the ones we decided should survive. And they gave me a really nice compliment. They said, your franchise. The book is translated into 5 different languages: Spanish, Dutch, Hindi, Chinese, Turkish, plus English, and there's an international edition. Oh, by the way, since the field's changing so much, you need to do a whole nother revision. So now I'm on my own doing a revision. That entire process, plus how they wanted to change how the ads were presented in the book, took a whole nother year. Finally, last spring, we all agreed it was done and it went to press. Score on all of it, by the time from when we started to when I actually had a book in my hands, 4 years passed. But I made a promise, and I can't tell you how thrilled I was to be able to keep that promise. It's really that simple. When I started this process, you literally worked your way up. I started by helping with instructor's manuals and test banks and reviewing books for other authors. I spent probably 5 years doing that before I got to the point where I was offered my first book contract. Now you can write one, and it goes up online. It's not that hard to get published. The question is, can you do it with quality? And that part, I think, unless you share with other people who can look at your work, help you become a better writer. One of the things that was said to me when I was a graduate student is, you want to become a better writer, there's 2 things you do. One is you keep on writing, because practice does improve you. And the other is get it reviewed. Have people look it over and give suggestions. I can't tell you how much I learned about writing by being edited and by sharing it with folks whose opinion I trusted about the quality of the work. So as far as getting into the publishing game, that's not hard. Doing it well might still be a little bit of a different animal.
Authors of articles published in 2021 from Library Services, Kansas Polymer Research Center, and Kelce College of Business. Author comments from Dr. Casie Hermansson.
Hi, I'm Casie Hermansson, and I'm from the English and Modern Languages Department. And the books that I published in 2020 are the last of the children's books that I wrote and published with Heinemann Education. My total number of books with them reached 22 between the years of 2012 and 2020. The last ones to come through are 4 in a set. I'll show them one at a time. Henry and the Climbing Boys is one that I particularly wanted to write because it deals with children doing dangerous work. And obviously having a nonfiction setting is important, but the story had to treat the setting as important, but it couldn't just be nonfiction made palatable. The story had to be first and foremost. And I was fascinated by the idea of actual children doing the work of chimney sweeps. So the story takes place in that setting. When there's one book accepted by the editors, then you can petition to have it considered for a series. And this is one that got picked up. So at that point, I was commissioned for a series of 4. And over the course of the year, in no particular order, I was working on all of these 4 that came out. Trouble at the Mill takes place in north of England in the cotton mill setting. Trouble at the Mill is actually a British idiomatic expression, so I really was insistent that that stay as the title and not be changed into something else during the editing process. The Blacksmith's Apprentice deals with a girl who is cross-dressing in order to escape a brother who has legal custody of her. And then finally, Matthew, the Printer's Apprentice, takes a child who is very clumsy at working for his master printer, but in the end saves the day when the master printer's printing blocks are knocked to the floor, this time on purpose to save him from political repercussions for having published pamphlets after hours that were political. Something that, again, all of these were really grounded in actual nonfiction facts. In fact, most facts needed to be double sourced for Heinemann. They obviously take that very seriously. The struggle with that was that it took a complete year to work on the series and complete the series and have them all be accepted. Each book undergoes numerous revisions, and there's never a guarantee that one will be picked up. So I usually sort of think that I wrote probably 150 books in order to have the 22 published that were finally published. The Ogre's Dinner, this is one that I wrote in 2017 while I was teaching in Finland, and it was published in 2020 as well. And that was one that I really wanted to play with being kind of subversive with children's literature and having the lead character be an eater of children. I was very influenced by the book, The Ogre and Zerelda, when I was growing up. And so I wanted to play with that kind of edgy humor, you know, baby teeth in the spittoon and all. It had to get toned down a little bit in the course of the editing process, but I did have a lot of fun with that one. The premise being that Gerald catches his first child, but wants to keep him as a pet. Mastodon Memorial School was written years ago, but also published in 2020. This one was challenging for the amount of illustration that it had to do. I'll just sort of show one of the illustrations that is different from the cover page. The illustrations are not done by me, and in each case, the editors at Heinemann pair up with a professional illustrator to do the work of illustrating the books. That's their job. I will show one of the illustrations from one of the children's workbooks. These are all done in charcoal pencil, and I was thrilled to pieces with those. They contracted with the same artist for all 4 of the series, all 4 of the books in the series. This one, Red Light on Mars, was the second book that I also wrote when I was in Finland in 2017, published in 2020, and deals with sort of robot jealousy. A robot on an international space station while on Mars has a new replacement, an upgrade that arrives in the latest batch of deliveries. And so his place at the captain's side is about to be usurped. And so there's a bit of a showdown in terms of who knows what on the station. The 8th book that was published in 2020 was co-written by one of the editors. So we published that one under a pseudonym to reflect the fact that both of us had put in a lot of work on it together. So that's about the books. Struggles, I think I've touched on actually that numerous revisions. I don't know how J.K. Rowling did it, not that I'm comparing my efforts to hers, but one of the issues is once you've been picked up for a series, there's a lot of pressure on trying to get the remaining books in the series completed, and so sometimes you can lose focus on the individual story. Another is that a lot of books wouldn't be picked up just because it was leveled incorrectly, or they weren't yet focusing on, for example, historical fiction. I had to wait to write those books until they were preparing books for a grade level high enough for historical fiction. Yeah, there were many. I've signed a non-disclosure agreement with Heinemann, so that's not that I had difficult time with the editors or anything, but I do have to think about what I can say. The books are actually not available on sources like Amazon.com, so sometimes it's hard for people to, for me to convince people that I have published them. Heinemann sends them out in sets of 200. With 6 copies of each of the readers, and they're leveled. So a box of books will go to libraries all around the world. And then each one, and I did not make these, but each single title comes out with a teacher's guide. And all of these are done in an education context, which is outside of my field of expertise. I guess that was the last difficulty I was going to touch on, was that a lot like writing a sonnet, there are a lot of constraints, and some of those constraints are about writing for children in an educational setting. So teachers, librarians, the various adult gatekeepers that are in place for book purchases for youth need to be making sure that we're catering to all of those audiences, not just in terms of word choice, subject matter choice, choice of treatment. For example, the ogre story was a little dark as first written. That needed to be modified. I guess finally, advice for authors. I started writing for children in 2011, and I sort of put myself through a boot camp of sorts. I joined the National Association, which is the SCBWI, Society for Children's Book Writers and Illustrators, SCBWI. And there is a Kansas City chapter. They have an annual conference. You can learn an awful lot that way. There are many books out there on writing for children. And I guess I thought that I would find it easier because I was already an established writer. I work in the English program. I'm used to reading a lot. But writing for children is a very different critter, and writing for 5th graders is very different than writing for 12th graders. So the learning curve is steep and long. And I guess the takeaway after a lot of that would be to put yourself in the child reader's shoes. Somebody said to me once, no child ever opened a book and thought, goody, I wonder what I will learn from this. They want a good story.
Authors of articles published in 2021 from the College of Technology. Mr. Clark D. Shaver published Joseph Hyppolith, The Latter-day Saints Canonized Map of the Afterlife in 2021. Congrats to all PSU authors who published in 2021. Thank you these authors who shared their publications with library services. An additional thank you to Dr. Smith, Dr. Baack, and Dr. Hermansson for their remarks for this video. Thanks to you, the viewer, for viewing this video as well as recognizing the accomplishments of all of our authors.